Now, the British needed to gain two things in order to intervene. One was the support of the general public. Without that support, then Prime Minister Chamberlain would be ousted, as this would be seen as unnecessary and unsupported by the public, and all of the MPs would lose support for him, and after a vote of no confidence, he would end his leadership. And secondly, they needed logistical capability. They needed to be able to transport so many British troops to Narvik, and the equipment and capability to transport them across the frozen landscape of northern Norway, hundreds of miles of northern Sweden, and then a couple hundred miles of northern Finland until they reach somewhere like Suomussalmi or Petsamo in northern Finland. And that required some work. And so they developed that over time. They developed Arctic capabilities. They developed some ski units. They tried to invest in understanding the geography of the area, although their understanding of it was very poor. In fact, one report suggests that um, a a British in the British High Command, they're using an old map from the 1910s, uh, during which, no, the early 1900s, that decade in which Norway and Sweden was one country, and so they couldn't tell whether the lines in between them were national borders or telephone lines, and they were confused by using wrong maps. And that example is just to show how misinformed the British Admiralty was while making that decision. Now, uh, Winston Churchill was very supportive of such intervention, but some members of Chamberlain's cabinet was not so much in support. For instance, Lord Halifax um, expressed some of his personal qualms with such endeavors, as it would harm Great Britain's reputation as a protector of peace and protector of national rights, as they would be infringing upon the rights of Norwegian and Swedish neutrality. And even with this moral cause of supporting Finland against the Soviet Union, the international community, including the United States, importantly, may not support its geopolitically rooted endeavors, not a moral one, um, in uh, in violating the rights of both the Norwegian and Swedish governments. The French were in support of this. Edward Daladier informed Chamberlain that his country would send in troops into Norway for the same reason that the British were interested. And so it would be a joint endeavor, although more British than French, if this were to occur. Yet they lacked, eventually they developed military capability and logistical capability, but they lacked popular support for it. And yet, as crisis mounted and war in the Western Front seemed more imminent and more likely, the British Parliament decided to enact this Narvik plan and decided to launch an intervention into Norway, first by mining Norwegian waters, violating its maritime neutrality and rights by by use of British naval forces to mine the waters, to put naval mines underneath the seas around Norway's key ports to deter German intervention. But during this time, the Germans had also uh, made strides in their efforts to um, to to launch their own attack against Norway. they wanted to prevent the British from intervening into Norway, cutting off their iron ore supply, and so the Germans developed Operation Weserübung, meaning exercise on the Weser River, which is a misnomer because that's not what the plan is about at all. It's about Scandinavia. The Germans planned a strong coordination with naval and land forces. The naval forces to attack the British naval forces, including any aircraft carrier, destroyer, submarine in the area, using British heavy cruisers and cruisers, and a series of submarine forces as well. And then once those ports were secured, the Germans would launch, would disembark, would embark its land forces across the Skagerrak and land on the ports secured in Oslo, in Kristiansand, in Stavanger, and in Alesund, and of course in Narvik. And this would be both to secure the actual iron ore imports in Narvik and also to eliminate any resistance within the Norwegian government. So this operation on German lines wasn't an operation merely to secure that one port, Narvik, that the British were interested in. It was to secure the entire country. It was to secure the entire government and to place it under German military authority. There was no other material incentive of resources within Norway, nor any ideological purpose in the same way that interested their conquest of Czechoslovakia and Poland in any conquest of Norway. It had not been in their radar, not within their plans, until fear of British intervention came in. And in order to invade Norway, the Germans would be required to invade Denmark as well, or at least to occupy it and eliminate resistance within that Danish government in order to secure the airfields in Aalborg and Skagen to launch paratroopers into southern Norway. And so that would be a 3-step invasion process. 1, secure the naval ports along the coastline from Oslo all the way up to Narvik. 2, secure Denmark. 3, secure mainland Norway and eliminate all opposition. And all things came to a head in April 7th, 1940, 2 months after a previous crisis with a German ship carrying British prisoners attempting to secure safety in Norwegian waters, and in the British Admiralty also neglecting and violating Norwegian rights in order to secure those soldiers. In April 7th, 1940, the German naval forces began Operation Weserübung and sent its naval forces, including the Admiral Hipper, the Deutschland, and a few other pocket battleships, heavy cruisers, and submarine forces, all into Norwegian waters to secure those vital ports, Oslo, Stavanger, Trondheim, Alesund, and Narvik. And at the same time, at around April 8th, around noon, the British embarked their own forces across the North Sea from Rosyth to intercept the German ships that they'd expected to be on the scene, and protect Norwegian waters. Both British and German fleets were violating Norwegian waters at this point. And the Norwegian government protested internationally about this, and their pleas were ignored by all parties. The British aircraft carrier, the HMS Ark Royal, arrived on scene with Admiral Somerville at its charge to attempt to wipe out any sort of German uh, intervention uh, on the way to Narvik. However, during that night of April 8th, they missed it. They lost the destroyer. The Royal Navy lost sight of the German battle cruisers, and the pocket battleships had arrived in their ports necessary and eliminated Norwegian resistance in the port of Narvik and eliminated Norwegian resistance in the ports of Trondheim in central Norway and Stavanger in the west. And the British attempted to attack these ships, including the submarine fleet found in Narvik. And this would be the second Battle of Narvik. The first Battle of Narvik being the German successful destruction of the entire Norwegian fleet stationed in it. So this would be an important battle, because if the Germans were to lose to the British would be able to secure the port, and there would be no ability for Germans to access and land ground forces in Narvik and secure Swedish iron ore transports. They'd have to march all the way up if they had secured southern Norway from Oslo, marched up to Narvik. And that is a very long way across a very mountainous territory, and it would not be as swift as their attempts in Poland. And this battle, the Second Battle of Narvik, ended in German victory. The British could not prohibit the Germans from landing troops in the port of Narvik, and they retreated further south to other ports, and Germans secured their base there. Now, further south, the Germans were able to secure every single major key port. They secured Trondheim, they secured Stavanger, they secured Allesund, they secured Kristiansand, and what I'll talk about is its invasion and securing of the port in Oslo.